Very cool Nuxt tutorial today. We are going to implement a very beautiful, responsive and full of feature blog page that you can use in any of your project. This tutorial is probably going to be split in multiple videos because there's quite a bit of coding that we have to go through, and I do not want to make like 2 hours long video. Be sure to stick around and subscribe to not miss future ones. We are going to build this beautiful blog page with this table of content that is inspired by Nuxt UI Pro content navigation component, which is extremely cool. The blog page is going to be responsive. We also going to implement this beautiful search functionality, which can actually look inside the content and index all the sections so that people can directly search for different sections. And this is extremely cool. And so in this first tutorial, what we are going to do is just install the dependencies, do some configuration, set up the indexing for all the sections. You're gonna have, by the way, everything in the description, so the template already fully implemented is already in the description. You can just clone the repository. And so we are going to also have like a basic blog page with some headings, some metadata displaying the read time and this kind of stuff. So that's enough said, we can just jump right into it. So let's go. I am inside our template, and to start with, we need to install all of the required dependencies. So we can just run this command here, and we are installing Nuxt Content, also Nuxt SEO, which we are going to use to give some SEO optimization to our blog posts. Then we are using Fuse.js to do Elasticsearch on the titles, we are going to see later. Then Day.js, which is a library to handle dates much more easily. And finally, this remark reading time plugin, which is a remark plugin that allows us to compute the reading time of any article that we write. We can hit install. We of course need to add them as modules here, so we can add both Nuxt Content and Nuxt SEO. You hit save and then install again to enable the modules. Okay, the first time you install Nuxt Content, it's probably going to ask you whether you want to install better SQLite 3. And of course you need to install, so just hit yes and let it complete the installation. We are ready to go. The first thing we want to do is just having some configuration here inside the Nuxt config. So we can add a new voice called content. Inside the build, we have our Markdown entry. Now, inside here, the first thing we want to set is our table of content, like this. So we want to have a maximum depth of 3. So it's going to take at maximum H4 headings. And then we want to have a search depth equal to 2. This is a property that is going to be used internally to index blog posts by Nuxt Content, so that we can later use advanced search. And setting the search depth to 2, it means that this indexing will happen up to H3 headings. We can hit save to format, and then we can go down and also add our remark plugin. So like this, we can go inside and add our remark reading time. And now we could pass some options of the plugin here, but we're just going to pass empty. We can hit save, and now we have our configuration ready to go for Nuxt Content. The next thing we need to do is just defining some content configuration. So if you go to Nuxt Content, you can see that from the newest version, I think in Nuxt Content 3, you have a different way to define a configuration. So you have to actually create a separate file. You can see here we have a new content config.ts. So we need to create this. So let's go into our code here and create into the root this file. Okay, now we have this. And now I'm going to paste the config that I already generated for these blog posts. Let me explain this a little bit. What we are doing is just defining a single collection called articles. And then we are saying that we want to be part of this collection all the markdown files inside the article folder, and it's of type page, meaning it's route based. It's going to have its own route. And then we can define this schema here, which is all the metadata we can specify about the article. Finally, we are wrapping this object inside this sitemap collection coming from Nuxt sitemap, which is part of Nuxt SEO. And this will allow us to directly and automatically add all of the elements inside this collection to our sitemap. So we do not need to do anything else. It's just going to automatically take all the markdown files, all the blog posts inside this collection, and just add them to our sitemap. I'm going to use 3 blog posts with all the metadata, everything with all the markdown and everything that I just created for this tutorial. So we're just going to paste them in, so we do not need to write any blog posts. So let me just take them and place them inside this content folder. So whatever article you want to put, you have to put this inside the content folder. And if we go to the content config, we see that we are starting from the articles folder. So all of our blog posts will be placed inside the content folder in a subfolder called articles. Now, whatever Markdown file we place inside here is going to be taken as part as this articles collection. So I'm just gonna take these 3 articles right here and also create a folder for my thumbnails and keep everything well organized. A good convention is just to keep the name of the thumbnails exactly the same as the name of the content. This way everything is much easier. Now we can just open one to see inside, and we can see that we have this metadata here inside at the top, inside the Markdown file, which is specifying exactly the schema that we defined inside here. I'm not going to go too much into the details of Nuxt content because you can check the documentation. But this syntax is basically flavored Markdown. You can see that we have normal Markdown together with some components. So you see, for example, the syntax here, we are saying that we are rendering a uCard component. We can pass props like this and slots like this. So this is very cool because you can render whatever component is registered globally inside your Markdown file, so you can make the blog post flavored and more interesting to read. Now we can see that we are using this alert component that we do not have, so we will need to create this. To actually be able to use components inside Nuxt content, there are 2 ways. One is just to add them inside a subfolder called content inside the inside the components folder. So whatever component you add inside this folder is going to be recognized by Nuxt content, and you will be able to use this inside your Markdown files. But another way is just to register the component globally. So for example, for this alert, we want it to be available in all our application. So what we can do is just go to the components folder and add a new component called alert and make it global using this suffix. Open the component. I'm just going to paste the code like this. We are doing nothing very difficult. We are just wrapping the uAlert component from Nuxt UI, and we are rendering the colors and the style based on some alert type. In this way, we are just passing the type warning. The title, the description is going to adjust dynamically. We can hit save, and now we have all of our components. Actually, if we scroll down, we see that we have one last component that we need to create, which is this author about, and this is going just to render some information about the author of the blog posts. So to do that, we do not need to be to have this component registered globally. So what we can do is just go into the content folder and create a new component called author about, and then I can just paste the code here. Sorry for pasting, but this is just very personal. You can style and just create this component in whatever way you want. But what we are doing here is just using a uCard to wrap some data and actually format it in a very good way. We are just giving this card an ID. In this way, we will be able to just get this component dynamically to scroll this component into view whenever we click a button. And now we should have all the components that we are using inside these blog posts. And always remember that if you want to define a new component, so in theory you can use whatever component you want inside here, you can just register it as global or create it inside this content folder, and then you can use this component inside your Markdown file with this syntax, and you can render basically whatever you want. So this is the very cool integration with Nuxt content. Now we need to create the pages, so namely the articles, index, and like the articles elements. Okay, so we can go inside our pages folder here, create a new folder called articles. Inside here we create 2 pages. One is ID to render the actual blog post, and one is of course the index. So inside this page we are going to create a list of all the articles, so fetch them dynamically, render cards for each one of them, and then implement an advanced search mechanism that we can search, let's say by title, but also by content inside the Markdown file using the advanced search functionalities from Nuxt content. We need to import Fuse because we are going to use this to actually implement Elasticsearch, and then we import our model that it's from my latest models video. So if you haven't seen it, just go check it out. And then we can add these 3 elements. So basically we are fetching all the articles inside the articles collection. We have our query for the title, and then our model element that we can use to open a model in which we will implement advanced search functionalities. It is complaining about these articles, probably because we need to install again because we created the content configuration but we did not install again. Okay, so now the error is gone. Now we are going to, aside from these articles, we are going to also get this search data right here, which if you see is using a little bit a different syntax. We are using these search sections from Nuxt Content. It's getting all the indexed sections inside our articles collection, so we can then use this to match using our Fuse.js and match on the different sections. And now we are going to have two different Fuse instances, because one is going to be on the title only of our articles, and the other one is going to actually search in all the sections that we got from this function. And also we need, of course, two query, one for the advanced search and one for the title query. And then finally we have two computed properties. One is the articles filtered on the title, and the other one is the sections filtered based on the search collections that we got here. I know it's a little bit confusing, but basically the idea is just having two level of search, one only on the title, but if we want, we will be able also to click a button, open a model, and then use advanced search functionalities on all the internal sections of the blog posts. Now we can go ahead and create our HTML. Then we have our title here, and you can see here I'm using this utility class, and so I added inside the CSS folder inside the assets some different CSS files. This one is for the typography. I'm defining some utility classes that you can use to style whatever tag you want. And then we have this Markdown file, which is containing just a single class that we're going to use to style our Markdown, so basically our blog posts. Of course, I've linked the two inside the main.css. Go back to our index, we can see that I'm using here this type subtitle. Then we're gonna have our controls. So we are going to have a first input, which is going to be run on this title query actually, and this button to clear the title query, and then this button to open our advanced search model. You can hit save. And now finally we need the section to render all of our articles. So we need to define this articles grid CSS. So just give this a length, our CSS, and always remember that when you are using Tailwind v4 and Nuxt v4, if you are using Tailwind functionalities inside the style tag of a component, you need to reference the main.css file. We are just doing some responsive stuff on our grid. We can go back here, and now we need, of course, to create this article card. So we can go inside our components and create a new one. And I had some comments about why I am using a snake case for components, while in the documentation is stated that it should be either Pascal case or kebab case. And the reason is just that I do not like Pascal case, and I use kebab case for route-based components. So for example, for pages, and also for example, server APIs. In this way, I'm able to always differentiate between a normal component, which I define with snake case, from an actually route-based components. For example, a page component, which I use kebab case in it. So in this way, whenever I'm working on something, I can just see that it's, in this case, is snake case, so I know that this one is a normal component. It is true that instead of snake case, I could use a Pascal case, but I just do not like uppercase letters, so this is just the reason. So let's go back to our article card, and now I'm going to paste all the style for the article card, because this component is just going to style the cards, not doing anything very complicated, and you can just change this and render the card in whatever style you want. And this is the component. Yeah, so we're just styling a Nuxt link points to the path of the article, and then just using some class and stuff, some badges to display the tags, the date, and then we are styling the image in such a way that it covers the entirety of the card, and it also has some animation whenever we are overing the card. Back to our index, try our first start running the server. We can try to go into our articles. Okay, so we have everything kind of styled bad. This is because we put this section out of this div. Actually, it needs to be inside, and now we have everything styled correctly. We see that the author image is missing, probably because I forgot to add it. So if we go to our Markdown file, we can see that our author avatar is this one, and it's highly probable that I just forgot to add it. Inside the assets, add the new folder called avatars. and then add my own image here, this very cool image. Okay, and now we have our articles correctly styled. Very cool. We have this animation whenever we are hovering on top of it. Of course, now if we click on this, we are going to go to a blank page, but we have the possibility to actually search here. But if I write ultimate, nothing happens. Why nothing happens? Let's see. Nothing happens because on the filtered articles on the title, we are using the query. Just change this to title query. Just write ultimate, and now we can see that we have a first level of search on the title. So if I write it, it's going to basically have this. If I write, I don't know, weekday, it's going to be this one. So we have our first level of search, and now we want to implement this second level of search here. So whenever we click here, it's going to open a model where we can search inside the single sections. To do that, we can just create this model right here, and what we are doing is just binding to this model element. Then we give it some title, some description, and then some variants for the box version. And inside here, our only template is going to be the body. We are going to render first a UI input on our query that is going to be used by the Fuse instance you see here to get all the matches. And then we are going to have a list all the results like this. So what we are doing is just rendering an ordered list with inside all elements in which we are rendering the title of the match and also some preview of the content. So if we hit save and go back here, we can open our model here. So our model opens up, and now I can search for anything, for example, drink, and you see that it's going to get all the results of the different content, and it's going to look inside the different sections. This is very, very cool. And if you see on the bottom here, you see that it's going to link to that page with also the fragment on the end. So we are going to navigate perfectly to that section. This is going to be very cool. Let me change a little bit this root page so we can actually navigate to our blogs. So our page is going to look like this instead, which is much more sleek. And now we can also navigate to our blog just by clicking here, and we have all of our blog posts. Now we can create and code our page for our blog. So this is going to be a lot of styling. So I'm just going to paste a little bit of code, but of course I'm going, as always, to explain everything. First, import all the stuff that we need. So we are importing the articles collection from Nuxt Content. So whenever you define the schema in the content config, internally is going to create a certain type, which is this one. You can see is very cool because it has all the metadata that we need. Then we import DJS and Lodash, which is a utility package that I installed that you can use just to handle collections and maps easily. Then we can get our data, the path of our route, and then getting the corresponding article of that path. So we are looking inside the articles collection at that specific path, and we are just going to take the first. And this inside here is going to be an article collection item or null or undefined. So we are just fetching the data for this specific blog post. So we can just define our article tag right here. And this is just to give it some advanced styling, nothing very fancy, just some styling. A section here where we actually render our content like this. So for the moment, we are just rendering the data you see here with this content render from Nuxt Content. We are using this CSS class that is very important, which is coming from this huge class right here, which is going to style everything inside the blog post. Hit save and go back to our page and hit reload. Click on one of our blog posts. We can see that we can read the blog and all the components are rendered perfectly. So we see our alerts, we see our uCard perfectly styled, our tables, and also finally our author about with all the links. This is very cool. Of course, a blog like this wouldn't be like too much interesting. We do not have a table of content, we do not have a title, an header, nothing. The next thing is just going to add our very cool header. So we can go back here and now we can add our header, which is going to be a little bit complicated, but just for the sake of styling. So the whole header is just going to be a uCard like this, and this is just styling, give it some minimum height, some variant, some classes to the body. So this is just styling. You can of course check it out and change it as much as you want, but just keep in mind that all the styling that I've done is tested times after time, so it's kind of very good, responsive. So if you want to change it, just be sure to test it, otherwise you could ship broken stuff. This image right here, so we are just rendering an image covering all the available space, the thumbnail of our blog post. Then we are displaying a div with a higher Z index, so it's going to be rendered on top of the image. And inside here we are going to have first our header, so the title of the blog post, and secondly our description. And then we want to display some metadata about the article, so we're just going to define a flex row, and inside this flex row we're going to have two sections. So the first one is going to render the author and the name, our avatar and stuff like this, and the other one is going to render some metadata, so for example the reading time, the date of publishing, and this kind of stuff. So inside the first, add our UAvatar. The source is going to be data.author, this one. We can also give it some icon, and then we're gonna give a big size because we need to be able to see this. A div where we render the name, if we have the description, and then finally we can have this ulink, which is going to allow us to scroll into view the author about if it is present. And define a variable here, the author about, and if we have this, we can hook on the click event, focus this element, some neutral color, and make it small about the author. And now we need to get this author element, hook on the on-mounted event. So at the start, we're just going to get the content element using this ID right here. And then from this, we are getting the author about by ID. So if we go to our component here, we can see that we gave it the ID author about. This one is going to contain exactly that element. Save. And we can see here that we have the header correctly styled, is very good. And we can also click this about the author, and we are going to scroll down to our section. I think I just got the wrong description here, and instead of data description, we need to render this data auto description. Hit save, go back, our description correctly styled up. Probably this one would be better to have it on the side, so we can just go back here, flex row here, and wrap this inside there. This is much better. So we have our avatar and all the information here, and we can scroll down. Perfect. Now our blog post is starting to become more interesting, as we see. And now we are going to add some metadata here. So the reading time, the publication date, and also the tags about the blog post. Add the tags. So inside here, we have this row here, which is for the author. And so here we can add this row of badges, and now we have our tags correctly displayed. And these tags are coming from the metadata. So if you go here, it's coming from here. So for whatever blog post you want, you can just define different tags, and this is going to be correctly rendered and styled here. So now we need to display some metadata. Inside this row that we created before, we can just paste these two paragraph tags. One is going to have just publication date correctly formatted using the JS, and the other one is going to display some icon and then the written time text. And this is going to be a computed property right here, which is going to take the reading time as text from the metadata of the article. Now this metadata you see here, we do not have types because it's going to be dynamically filled in by the plugin that we installed. So if we go to our package, we installed this plugin remark reading time. And so if you go to the documentation, you can see that it's going to populate this reading time object, take this data and render it directly here. So if we hit save and go back here, we can see that we have our metadata correctly styled up. This is starting to look very cool. We have our publication date and also the reading time. Now, of course, this reading time is going to adjust dynamically based on the length of the blog post. So this is something very, very, very cool. You have nowadays people actually hard coding this stuff when they write the blog post. Instead here, it's automatically and dynamically created. So it's very cool. Now that we have our blog post right here, we can see that if we go back here and use the advanced search, so for example, I search anything, I don't know, drink, we can see that we have different sections. And if we click, for example, to this one, we are going to navigate to the blog and to the exact correct heading. this is extremely good. Imagine doing this for, I don't know, documentation for your product. You can just go here, search for anything. By clicking, you can just navigate to the correct section. It's very, very good. So the video is becoming a little bit too long. So what we're going to do is just stop here. And the next time we are going to develop our very good responsive table of content that is going to dynamically adjust whether we are on mobile or on desktop. For now, we already have a way just to navigate inside our blog and read everything, and our blog is perfectly styled up. Okay, so we are done with this tutorial today. We already have a fully functioning blog page. We have advanced indexing for all the sections of our content. The next video, probably we are going to build the table of content navigation inspired by Nuxt UI Pro, and we are going to build it from scratch. Be sure to stick around and subscribe to not miss the future tutorials. You have all the links in the description. The repository is fully implemented. If you want already just to clone and use it for your projects, you can do that. That's it for today's video, and see you in the next tutorials. Cheers!